probably. Hello? What? You're falling down your chair. Come on. You have this on public. Okay. Here. Stand up. Stand up now. Stand up. Come here. Come here. Come here. When in doubt, look it up. Okay? Because otherwise it would sound like, okay, we took the switch. Why the heck is your rocket change? I did that one time. It was not funny. We got Bob. Somebody heard me. That was yours? Maybe that's how you thought it was. Yeah.
That sounds my cell phone.
Are we there? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Planning Board. This is November 12th. Wow. Where's the time gone? First item on our agenda tonight will be
Master plan.
board business
Master plan.
update. The RFP for the master plan consultant was issued on 10/14 with proposals due to the town on 10/23. There are 30 requests for the RFP, and 6 potential bidders attended the pre-bid conference briefing. Maren, do you have anything to add to that, or were you there as a part of that briefing?
I was at the briefing, and then I was at the meeting again this last week.
That's great. Seems to be proceeding pretty well. Let's see, one thing that I noticed at the last meeting is we don't have hardly any participation from the public, and we really need to get as many people involved from all different aspects. You know, the kids, I say kids, 20s and 30s, they're kids to me. All the way up to the seniors, because this is going to really help pave the way for what our town's going to look like in the next 10 to 20 years. Very important document.
Yeah, and I think we'll be able to realize more of that as we get a consultant on board and they do the specific outreach program
Right.
to gather the information, so that'll help a lot.
That's great. Let's see, draft minutes from October 15th.
No action necessary. Accepted as written. Motion to approve?
What is the pleasure? Oh, we have a motion to approve
Second.
and a second. Are there any comments or edits? Hearing none? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Seems the ayes have it. Thank you.
Bring yourself up to speed. You read them all.
Yeah.
Let's see, mail, and bills and payroll. Do we have payroll?
Yeah, bills and payroll are going around for
Right.
signatures.
Okay,
The mail that I put in the meeting packet was just the hearing notice for the meeting. Village on the Common is meeting with Appeals Board next week on the extension request for that comprehensive permit.
that's Mike Kimball's 40B.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. But building permits have issued, so they have exercised their special permit. So it might be a moot point to go through that exercise, but at least it's good to have the conversation.
Mark?
Come on now. Walter's gonna hit it for you.
Macintosh Lane, the Orchards, inspection,
Yep.
inspection reports. Let's see, the developer Peter Carlos indicated that he would be requesting reduction in bond from Macintosh Lane at this meeting.
Yep, we did get Peter's here, we did get his request to reduce the bond. He's looking for reduction on the Phase 2, the second part of Macintosh Lane, for the trenching, for the electrical and the conduit install, plus on the roadway, the gravel and the binder. Green looked at the gravel in the binder, have inspected that all along, and they're fine with that. And the electric department was fine with releasing the electrical conduit and trench. So the request was to reduce the bond by $64,200. That leaves over $89,000 in the bond. And actually, Clyde reviewed the site as well and indicated that he didn't have any concerns. I mean, not to speak for Jim, but
Jim,
Yeah, I guess they hear.
Jim, do you have anything to add to that? Things look good for you, as far as you're concerned?
I've bought it quite a few times, and Peter does what he asks.
Peter, do you have any comments before we talk?
Marvin summed it up.
Okay.
Motion to approve?
We have a
Second.
motion to approve the reduction, we have a second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you, Peter, and thank you, Jim.
there were inspection reports that I believe I put in your meeting packets for McIntosh Lane. The one outstanding request was to have silt sacks reinstalled, and I believe those were done. So on McIntosh Lane, the approval indicates that the inspection reports aren't valid until you've accepted them, so if you would vote to accept the latest inspection report.
Which item in our agenda is that, Mary?
That was board business number E,
Yeah.
1E.
Do we need to, so you need a vote for that?
That's what we've been doing all along, so
Okay.
that'd be helpful.
Do I have a motion to accept the inspection request? Is that it?
Inspection report, I think it was visits,
18 and 19?
yeah, 18 and 19.
Second.
I'm gonna make the
We-
motion.
Gonna make a motion?
Yeah, do we have a motion to accept?
There you go, I can make a motion.
Good.
To
We have a
accept.
motion and...
Second.
Second? Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
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 All opposed? The ayes have it.
And then, we did get an inspection report from Green for Distribution Drive. I don't believe I put it in your packets.
Yeah.
I'll
I was looking for that.
send that around. That one is just for your information, you don't need to accept it, but... I will have to get that to you.
Okay, the plain, did you have a chance to read that inspection report, Mary?
Yeah.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Plain English version?
They've been doing work on Distribution Center Circle that's related to development of the Potpourri Building,
Yeah.
the big warehouse out there. The work that's within the roadway right-of-way has been inspected by Green. They've been pleased with the coordination. There were a couple questions in the design, and between Jim and Green and the design engineer, they were able to make some recommendations, brought the water department in on one of the questions, and were able to revise the design to what the water department wanted. So
Great.
it's been going, that coordination's been going very well.
Great. That's a big project.
Yeah.
If anybody hasn't been down Distribution Drive, there's a big building there now. A second big building, I should say.
Yeah.
Jim, do you have any comment on that? The inspection reports? All right. Hearing none, do we need to have any action on that inspection report?
No action
Good.
required.
And at 7:40, we have an A&R, and it's exactly 7:40. Tehadawon Road, 44 and 46 Tehadawon. Sherry,
How's everybody?
yes, very nice.
I was asked to stand in for this one because the applicant is attending a child's function at school.
Good, we have Sherry Gould here to discuss 44 and 46 Tehadawon Road. Well,
Simple A&R plan, they're taking some land from the father's abutting property and adding it to the Cowley property in front. That parcel A is going to be next to the Cowley, to the Holland property.
Oh, parcel A goes to,
Parcel A goes to Hollander.
that's it.
It's coming out of the Cowley.
so A goes to A1,
Yes.
and it's coming from A5.
That's correct. And everything still meets all the zoning dimensional requirements.
Yeah, and I think the notes reflect that
Which
as
one are
well.
we signing these?
Yeah.
I don't want. We're signing just this?
That and several copies of
Yes.
that.
What does that do for, it goes from 294 feet to 350-something feet, which then turns around and gives Mark T. and Cheryl C. Hollinger enough frontage to make another lot out of that? Is that what it does?
That's a possibility, but I think if you look at the location of the house, it's not gonna be able to be done because that house is pretty much centered. They just want the additional land. I suspect it might be for septic expansion in the future.
Ah,
And,
They got 3.5 acres as it is now. Why do they need another 30,
Almost an acre.
2/3 of an acre?
Well, who cares?
It's an
Does it meet the standards of an A&R?
Yeah,
So we're done.
Not allowed to ask questions?
Well, I mean, sure, if it's germane to the standard of an A&R, but I mean, who cares why they want to add land to their land?
gentlemen, is there anything on this document that you see that anyone needs to comment on? If not, hearing
I
none.
want to be chastised.
the only problem is it has the wrong abutters around it. Does it matter?
Pardon me?
The abutters are wrong. Does it
Oh,
matter?
it doesn't matter for the purpose of the plan.
Okay,
And it's now formally on that. The only thing that matters is their names being right. They check those to the deeds currently.
I'm an abutter, but let me on it.
well, Mark, you're not memorialized on this
I
one.
guess not.
Does
Doesn't
it
matter to
break,
me.
does
It's
it break
fine.
your heart?
Nope, it's fine with me.
All right.
Just want to make sure it's
You-
okay to have.
Then you want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the addition of parcel A to lot A1.
Great. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Any discussion from the audience? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you, Sherry.
You're just signing the Mylar?
Right, yeah, if you take a few minutes to sign the Mylar and a couple of the large copies of it.
Great.
Just the paper, right?
While we're doing that, Maren handed out a copy of the Massachusetts Housing and Community Development Fall Workshops. These are great seminars to take advantage of. Some of the best experts in the state each station, and they're basically free of charge or at a minimal fee. So I'd encourage anybody on the board to take, or even in the audience, if you have a tendency towards land or land use or real estate. These citizen planning workshops are terrific. There's a whole series in the fall, and then there's another series in the spring. Cherry District.
That's on the,
Thank you.
And you'll put today's date on there for me?
I think it's already on.
Thank you.
it's on.
Great, thank you.
Well, we're way ahead of schedule here.
No, you're right on time.
Oh, actually, that's right. 7:45.
Right on time.
Public hearing, 225 Taylor Street, and adjacent land. The Aquifer Water District Resource Special Permit. Extend time frame to exercise approvals for a 310,000 square foot office building campus.
And actually, it's both the Aquifer Water Resource District and the major commercial industrial use special permit.
So we have two permits tonight to vote on. Who's going to represent the petitioner here?
I think Ed's here, and I think Ed Scioli is here, and Ed Mullen has the hearing notice to read.
Public hearing, extended special permit, 225 Taylor Street. The Town of Littleton Planning Board will open a public hearing on Thursday, November 12th, 2015, at 7:45 in room 103 at the Shattuck Street Town Hall, 37 Shattuck Street, to consider the application to modify special permits pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 40A, in the Code of the Town of Littleton zoning. Major commercial or industrial use special permit, Section 173-86 through 173-89, and Aquifer and Water Resource District, Section 173-61 through 173-64. Property location, 225 Taylor Street in Liberty Square, Assessors Map R-10, parcels 3, 6, and 7. Applicant, the Gutierrez Company of Burlington, Mass. The applicant is seeking to modify the existing special permit for a master plan in major commercial or industrial use in the existing Aquifer District. Special permits for a proposed office development to extend the time frame to being constructed on this project. The application can be viewed at the Planning Board and Town Clerk's office during their business hours. Any person interested or wishing to be heard on the proposed plan should appear at the time and place designated. The Town of Littleton does not discriminate on the basis of disability. Further, a signed translation of this hearing will be provided for the hearing impaired or request by contacting Maren Toolhill 1 week prior to the meeting.
Very good.
I got a new pair of glasses and I didn't bring them.
All right, who's the petitioner for this?
Ed Scioli with the Guitarist Company.
Ed Scioli, welcome.
You from Littleton?
I am.
All right, I thought you looked familiar. How's
Could
the
you-
clan?
Could you,
I'm sorry.
How's the clan?
Oh, very good, thank you. Thanks for asking.
okay, could you give us an explanation of what we have here?
Sure. This is a project that we initially brought before this planning board back in 2003. We had several extensions of the permit that was issued then. The project that we're proposing for the site is 330,000 square feet of first-class commercial office space. It's situated in 3 buildings, on-surface parking, stormwater management system, and on-site wastewater treatment facility. We're here tonight just to request an extension to those permits. There's no change to the plan that we originally permitted before you folks. Open any questions?
Does any of the members of the board have any questions?
No.
It's just an extension. I was on board when we approved it in 2003. It's just a question of trying to find somebody to go into the building.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's a build-to-suit project.
Yeah. Any questions?
No.
Okay.
Motion to approve?
Motion
Stand.
to extend the special permit, or,
I'm not sure if there's any neighbors here for this.
excuse me,
I'm not sure if there's any neighbors here for this.
do we have any? Oh, we do. Let's hear from the neighbors if you'd like.
We just came and listened and see what was going on.
Yeah.
I didn't know how long you could extend permits. And when you
Yeah.
put a limit on a permit, what's the idea behind the limit on the permit versus extending the permit? They've been extended before, right?
Correct, yeah. It's,
Checks and balance.
It's a system of checks and balances. It's like anything else. As times change, if there was activity going on, this would be the time that we would have to either stop that activity or find out what's going on. It's so that things don't just carry on indefinitely without some sort of clock to them.
It also gives them, obviously, this project's been through the downturns in 2008. Doesn't make sense to force them to build a building that's gonna stay empty. Doesn't do them any good, it doesn't do the town any good to have another empty building up there. They've spent a lot of money to get those permits. They went through all the permitting process, they had all the engineers. The point is gonna be coming up in a few minutes. That was extended for about 20 years. And thank God we did, and now we have something nice to look forward to, and hopefully, eventually, the economy will change, or somebody will be interested, and we'll have a developer as good as we have at the point out there. But it's more housekeeping than anything else.
What about code changes?
They're gonna have to, obviously, if there's any changes in our bylaw or anything that came in since they were approved, they're gonna have to readdress those. But for right now, it's just like treading water. They're just, all the permits are still in place, they're paying the fees on them, and just hopefully something comes, the economy changes and such that somebody's interested, because you try to build a campus, right? It's supposed to be like the old days with digital, a big campus where all the, one tenant, a big place for, 10,000 people or whatever, a campus thing, and those are few and far between these days. But it's just housekeeping to extend their permits, so they don't have to start all over again, actually.
Yeah.
So Mark, I think the only thing I'd take exception to is it would be really hard to fit 10,000 people.
Well, yeah, I don't think it was 10, it might have been 1,000.
330,000 square feet.
Might have been 1,000 people,
Right.
yeah. But it was-
And I think that was an interesting point that was made. The zoning in that area, the Aquifer and Water Resource District maps actually changed, and it's become a little less restrictive than when the project was permitted. So there's
That's right. That's
the
right.
conditions in place are a little more stringent than you would have to make them today. If they were to modify the permits.
Make a motion to continue the,
Extend it.
extend the permit.
Second.
What time frame? 2 years?
Is that what we've been doing all along?
That's the usual.
Good.
That good with you?
That's fine.
See you again in 2 years, maybe? Hopefully
Hopefully, good building.
Hopefully we'll be building, right. So we have a motion to extend the commercial industrial use aquifer and water resource district special permit. Do we have a second?
Second.
We do.
Yeah.
Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Now we're a little ahead of schedule.
Our next meeting is,
December 10th.
okay.
Mary, do we have to vote to close the public hearing? Technically.
Technically, yeah.
Do we have a motion to close the public hearing that we just had?
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
Yeah. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it.
You want to pass these down?
Oh. These somehow appear on the desk every time Sherry shows up.
Seeing as how there's, the next one isn't anything we need to be voting on, correct? Can we start early with Mr. Park in case he wants to go late?
Well, we have 5 minutes, and
It wouldn't hurt to start early as long as the discussion is still going, and you don't cut off debate before.
Yeah, Sam is
Not a-
usually long-winded, so let's commit the time.
It's not a public hearing, it's a meeting, so.
So we can, we're good to go?
Thank you.
Mr. Park, please, come.
Thank you. My name's Sam Park. owner of the Point. I have with me Dave Baum, the architect who flew in today from Milwaukee, and Tim Power, who's our project manager, who was always accessible on the trailer. We actually coincidentally moved our entire office into trailers here, so at the Point, just because it's quite exciting now to see it going up. In fact, if you go out there today, we just powered up the lights on the second level. So the second level, so we're just sort of methodical. Now, we are obviously, it's taking us a little longer to get to where we'd like to be, but hopefully today we'll sort of give some good news on things. So I thought what we'd do is allow Tim to give you a quick overview of where we are on the site. I understand, I wasn't here at the last meeting, but 3 weeks ago, I understand the site plan modification, the minor modifications to tweaking some of the buildings was approved, subject to us coming back and tweaking a little bit on the plan. So I have Dave here with what I think is a pretty exciting plan. I think we've, as I call it, Littletonized it a little bit to accommodate some of the features that we've been working with and some of the motifs, made it a little more pedestrian friendly, and Dave will go through that. So I'll turn it over to Tim. When they're done, I thought I'd give you a quick overview. By the way, Ed, I don't think we've met, welcome to the board, I guess. But
Ed Mullen here.
Yes, I think this is the first time I've seen him on that side of the table, so congratulations. And then afterwards, I'll give you, after those two, give an overview of where we are. We obviously would love to know that this current elevations are acceptable, because after our 3 weeks, getting the site plan approval 3 weeks ago, if you've been up there in the last 10 days, most of the earthwork is now done. The roadway, the bridge, everything has been built. So we're ready to start foundations as early as next week on the cinema. So I'll turn it over to Tim, and then at the end I'll give you an update on our leasing and just some of the background information that doesn't really deal with the cinema.
Boy, that's great. Thanks.
So just while we get the
We still need this?
image up, just handouts, it's a site plan you've seen before, but I wanted to,
So I'll just pass around.
yeah, just pick one. I did want to start, Rich had one comment at the last meeting about the site, about the connectivity, pedestrian connectivity from the lower level up to the cinema. So if you can see on that plan, this is what I'm showing you the site plan. There is a long parking aisle with a bunch of green and some trees shown and illustrated there on the site plan, just to demonstrate again connectivity and some landscaping, not just a paved sidewalk from point A to point B. So it's on the site plan, I think. This path. So as Sam said, just last time we talked about the site plan and approved the modification of the site plan, and here we're just to revisit and show the final elevations. I think David's team did a great job taking into account comments from the board, bringing things a little more pedestrian scale and incorporating some site features that we already have in architecture on site. So with the image up on the board, I may let David take over.
Gotta get our technical details going here.
So you can see on the cinema image, obviously, there's a lot more. He's added a canopy there. There's a lot more lower planting along the edge of the cinema.
Let's go with this.
And there we go. So
Okay, so David Baum with Schrader and Holt Architects.
Welcome back.
Thank you.
Yes.
3 weeks ago, you gave us great feedback. We took that back. We went back to the original renderings that were presented to the town and brought some of this identity into our building and tweaked our building based on the comments that you had. So the first thing that we talked about last time was the pedestrian access from the restaurant, what's that called?
Tavern in the Square.
Tavern in the Square, Building C on the plan. You wanted a pedestrian walkway that went up the main boulevard. You wanted nice planting along there. Our development team has pulled all that together for you. You go across that drive lane to Building K, and then we are Building L. And what you would ask for is we want a more pedestrian-friendly building that has more Littleton character to it. So if you could go to the other image, the rendering. Yes, that one there. What you see here is a revision that we've made based on your comments. If you recall last time, that entrance piece was turned at a 45-degree angle because our client wanted it to face the interstate.
You guys wanted to face the center more and be the end terminus of that walkway. So we've made that transition, turned the building, squared it towards the parking lot so that you have a better view from Constitution Boulevard. Okay? The other issue is we wanted that more pedestrian friendly, more Littleton feel to it. So as you can see in some of the existing original buildings, there are these long canopies that came across the storefronts of various buildings throughout the center. So we brought those canopies into ours and stretched that canopy across the whole building from 3/4 across the Grand DX screen all the way out past our entrance to bring the scale of our building down. We've got a lot of ins and out articulation across that building, starting from the left with a sign panel, which would be our reader board that would promote what movies are playing at what time. So as you drive through the center, you can see that this movie is playing at this time tonight, and you can go to the restaurant, park down there, take your walk up, and be sure you're back here at that time. The next element in is another storefront that we have, and that's for our little lounge area that we have inside. So you can come in, sit in there, wait for your kids to have the movie, and then you don't have to go to the movie if you don't want. You can sit in the lounge and watch the sports games that are going on the big screen TV. The final entrance, walk a little bit farther down, is the main entrance to the lobby itself. That's underneath the word cinema and underneath the O'Neill Cinema logo. You've asked us to bring that element down in scale. If you recall the last time, that O'Neill Cinema logo was up on top, so we have taken some 8 feet out of that tower and brought it down immensely. You've asked for landscaping. If you recall in the last one, we had all concrete in front of the building. We didn't want it in there, we didn't want all the landscaping, but you guys asked for it, so we came back in, put in an 8-foot area of landscaping. So from the street to the landscaping, there's an 8-foot walkway, 8 foot of landscaping, and then there's a 4-foot walkway along the building. The poster cases that you see there, integral to movie theaters, we need a walkway back there to get to those poster cases, so we can't go landscaping all the way to the building. You also asked for that glass area to be extended over and try and minimize the Grand DX auditorium. We've done that with the blue panels that you see there. It's a component of the sign panel. It's the same material. It's brought out, it brings that line across and minimizes the area of that building. So based on the comments that you gave us last time, those are the elements that we've responded to bring a little more Littleton character to this building, tie it in with what is already going on with the shopping center, and make it more pedestrian friendly. So if you have any questions, I can answer anything direct.
One of the, Dave, if I could just interrupt.
Sure,
please.
One of the things that we worked pretty closely with Dave over the last 3 weeks, so there's some major, what I really like about this, just from a personal standpoint, you obviously have one big box because it's the major theater, and the other ones are kind of hidden. But besides also pushing the building a little bit further into the hill so that it feels a little bit more recessed, it actually has brought the scale down a lot in terms of the way that the articulation of the different elements. It's not just, if you look at most theaters today, the front of the building is pretty much a 32-foot high, box that just runs straight across.
Right.
Because of the different uses in the lobby design, we like it because it actually breaks it down to the the multi-structure look. There is, you do have a kind of a nice tower design that kind of mimics some of the cornice details that we've incorporated elsewhere in the center. It or you even see sometimes downtown Littleton with one of the office buildings. But the ability to bring that whole scale down, I always look at it from the standpoint: is this a continuity of the street frontage of the retail that will be right next door? And I think this does a pretty nice job. It's not just a bland wall at that level. And by bringing out that awning that goes over it, it actually, when you're on that sidewalk, it'll really make the space feel like it's a touchable single floor elevation. So we actually were very excited to see this addition of Dave's design. And I think it's something worth, we're really pretty excited about. And the articulation even on the sidewalls has been done in order to break up the overall massing of what could otherwise be. I think this will be the nicest cinema ever built in Massachusetts, frankly, and I've seen a lot of them. No, it's first of all, even though it's a 10-screen theater, it has the seating capacity of a 6-screen because they're all luxury seating, and so it's a very unique concept. And then just to have this much articulation on a cinema is pretty exciting.
Yeah.
And they've broken up a lot of the spaces the same way we would have done it for whether it was a major anchor store. So, Dave, thank you.
Any comments from the board?
I think you did everything we asked them to do. I think the building looks phenomenal. Not that it looked bad earlier, but it's gonna be up on the hill, it's gonna be the cornerstone of the whole,
It's a nice bookend.
when it's all
Yeah.
done. You come up that road, you'll see the cinema. Did a great job. And you're right, it's not a big square box up there anymore.
Right, thanks, Dave.
Lighting.
Yes,
We discussed lighting last time you were in first. We were going to go with Christmas tree lights, and then we went
no
to
Christmas tree lights.
white lights, and now we're down to minimized lights, no lights.
That we're looking for the white lights, but there'll be a low glow, not a bright, value as bright as these.
Is there a rendering of where they're going to be located? Are they going to be at the top rim of the building? Are they going to be?
If I can step over here, these elements here that are a little darker, those will be the lights.
Oh, I think those would be nice.
And they wrap inside the building too, so they're nice.
I've actually seen that effect.
Me too.
It can be a little bit unusual when you see it in the first elevation, but when you think about the fact that all the signs in the plaza, the signage that's on the rest of the buildings, and the floodlighting that we do generally around the landscape, it actually breaks up what otherwise turns out to be a very flat surface. So it's almost like, we always get a little worried about neon and flashing lights, right? And so, but the light, I've seen the effect he's looking for, and I can tell you, it's a nice warm.
Can we see the effect that he's looking
You have
for?
to.
That's gonna be lit up on top?
They're like,
See all the slashes?
Horizontal
On
lines.
your- If you look on your,
One color, one time, or are they gonna run around
No,
and?
one color forever,
I
white.
saw
They're not
this,
gonna run around like a
No.
ticker tape?
That was a theme that we were gonna try to do in the lobby. We've talked to the operators of that theme, way too expensive, so that was pulled off the table.
Peter, I saw the same sort of lighting a couple of weeks ago,
The lights.
and it looks pretty good, looks fine. If it's what I saw was very low glow, not
I can tell you don't
very
like
low
it, too, you just
wattage.
turn the switch off, right, and then it turns off, but I do think with the massing of the building, it'll add the review, it kind of
well,
accentuates it.
I like the architecture. I like the redesign. I mean, I think it
You
looks
just want to see
great.
how the effect of the light.
Right, and listen, when it's dark outside and you obviously want to bring attention to the building, you got the cinema sign, you got the O'Neill logo. I think lighting the architecture is okay, because then you can see the whole building. I'm just wondering how bright it's going to be. That's why I'm asking if
Oh,
I
I
can
see.
see.
This is last month's. Can we put this one in? Is the corner entrance gonna bother everybody?
Oh,
It's the old design. No,
Do you have
we know.
a building in real life picture, instead of an
Yeah.
artist rendition?
Let me see if that is on here.
Is that what you're interested in?
Yeah, it is, yeah.
I saw, like I say, I saw a building like this with that same horizontal lighting.
Yeah, no, I think,
And-
like I said, I would want to light this if I was the designer or the owner of the building.
Those horizontal lines will actually help bring the massing of the building down.
Right, I just don't want it to be a
Yeah.
lightning bolt, you know?
No, I get you.
If it's soft light like we're talking about, but
Yeah, this is.
I don't want to approve something I can't see.
This is actually a design concept that one of my guys saw on Nordstrom's. There's a new Nordstrom's concept that was developed, and they saw this lighting effect on there.
I wonder if that's where I saw it. I'm not sure where I saw it, but I saw it, and I thought,
Okay.
okay, that does look okay.
Yeah. Let's switch out little fobs here.
Well, you're doing that. Sam, I think, and Dave, I think you've done a great job pulling the massing down with that long horizontal canopy that's out. The secondary roof that sets back a little further, that cuts into the big wall. The vertical and horizontal on that big wall, and the detail, the out and ins on the side wall, making it look like it's a multi-building type of building rather than one big massive block.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what we've tried to do with
Yeah.
most of the big buildings.
Oh, yeah, that's it.
What kind of materials will you be using? Metal panel, I
For
presume?
what, I was busy over here.
Yeah.
For which
No,
part?
so that's the horizontal detail in the concrete.
Similar, we've got those recesses in there. Ours aren't gonna be continuous like that, ours are spots.
Okay.
And then you see in the upper right image, the white spots are actually lights.
Okay.
So those two upper pictures are the Nordstroms that just did this concept.
Right.
Very nice. It does
So-
help with the massing.
It's a
bringing it down.
subtle glow, it's not,
Will you have the same down lighting that they're showing in the awning or less?
we're not gonna have that scallop effect, but yes, we will have downlighting.
You'll have it
in
over the
that.
posters probably?
Yeah,
something-
well, you don't wanna light the posters because the posters are illuminated and they glow. So I
Gotcha.
can't put light on them. But we do have light in the ceiling that'll light up the sidewalk, but not the wall of the building.
Okay,
So the posters will glow.
thank you for doing that.
And are those the materials, the precast?
Yes,
So it'll all be precast as opposed to metal panel?
correct.
Yeah, very nice.
Those lights, just the final question for me, can they be adjusted as far as if they're too bright, can you tone them down?
Yeah, we can put them on a dimmer system.
You can do that?
Yeah, it's an LED light, so you can just dim them up and dim them down.
How's that go?
Dim them up and dim them down.
Good.
Did I give you another one? No, these ends.
You know, by the way, I meant to show, something, just for the, hopefully I can my kids screen that. You know, like, we're really focused on the lighting especially in the evenings, so when you look at like, this is the ones we
Oh,
just
yeah.
powered up
Yeah.
for the second set of buildings.
Isn't that nice?
And it just creates, the light actually
Yeah.
takes away the blandness at night and
Right.
kind of breaks it up a little bit.
Right.
So it's sort of, it's a scale issue.
Yeah, no, I think it's a good idea. Like, I mean, you see these buildings
Just
if
don't
they're
want
not
it to,
lit.
yeah, we aren't going to do the WBUR sign on the Mass Pike, you know?
Yeah.
But it's, when you get all the little features lit up, and actually the one I like the best is when you look at the way they juxtapose over,
Yeah.
but this is just
The
looking down the
Is that
alleyway.
the
from-
Starbucks?
This is actually, believe it or not, this is the pet source,
Yeah.
looking down at the Anchor.
Really nice. I'll have to go up there.
It actually lit up nice today, and we'll be running through the rest of it shortly.
Do you have LED lighting on the driveway in? Because it's so subtle and so nice. It's
Yeah,
like-
it will
it's like
actually be-
just enough, but not too much.
Yeah, everything on the site is LED at this point.
Great.
So it's just where everything is going. The
Yeah.
tricky part with LED, if you're ever doing it on a project for this town, is you got to get the right temperature of the light, because you can have warm LED and you can have cold LED. So it's blue or kind of yellowish, so we always tend to shoot for the yellow light. But some of it, like the signs are always a little brighter, and then the background landscaping light's a little warmer. It usually creates a nice combination.
Really does on the driveway in.
Do we have to approve this?
Yeah, we need to approve the architectural plans.
Great.
I think the site plans were already approved 3
Yeah,
weeks
yeah.
ago, so it's just the architecture we can move forward.
I'll make a motion to approve the architectural plans as presented.
As a man, yeah.
We have
I'll
a
sec-
motion
I'll second.
and a
Nice
second.
job.
Now, well, we're in discussion. Is there any comment from the public on
Thank you.
any of this? On the, hearing none?
You did have a comment, somebody who was watching a replay of the last meeting called and said that he agreed that you needed more green space in the middle of the parking lot and for the new buildings, and like to see shrubs and trees. And from what I can see, that's been reflected in the new plan. So
Well,
I'm sorry,
that's-
that was a comment on the last one, not on this.
We had a second already, right?
I will say, just in comment to that, we probably spend more on landscaping than any developer who deals retail. If you've been up to the first phase and look at the grasses, the natural plantings, and the trees in front of Starbucks, I think that's
Yeah.
pretty much the theme for the whole center.
Do we still have a walkway that traverses the whole project?
The walkways are all connected. They all go past the buildings all the way. The bookend is the theater,
Yep.
but we're really encouraging people to walk down past Building K, then down to Building C through these walkway systems. And if you just go up there, we're about to power up the fire pits in the DEF plazas, but we're kind of connected by a series of walkway systems. So we are changing grade,
Yep.
by about 60 to 80 feet over the course of the
Yeah.
project. So the walkways are all interconnected, so you don't have to get in your car to go to any other section of the site.
You have thermal lights too around the fire pits?
Thermal lights.
I was just at a place,
Oh,
same
you
thing.
mean
They
like-
got fire pits outside, but they had thermal lights for on the outside of all the restaurants, so when you walk away from the fire pit, you didn't get cold. I mean,
Oh.
it's just something that I observed.
Where did
We
you
won't
say
look at
that?
those. I think the outdoor restaurants have a lot of umbrella space. They will be responsible for that.
They had the lamps underneath, the thermal lamps were lined up underneath all the awnings, so when you
Oh.
walked by, you just didn't notice any temperature change
Oh, no.
until you walked completely away from the restaurant.
Does your energy code allow it?
Yeah, probably not.
I have no idea. I'm just telling you what I saw. Like,
I have an idea.
It's, I think Gaithersburg, Maryland, they have a, development looks very similar to this, and they have a whole bunch of restaurants that line one side next to the hotels, and I noticed they put thermal lamps, which I hadn't seen before, all the way down.
Yeah.
Well, if we're done with the, are we still have a vote?
We just got to vote.
Yeah, I think we're all set.
Moved and seconded.
Any further comment? Hearing none? All in favor?
Aye.
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 All opposed? The ayes have it. Dave, you did a great job.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Let me give you a quick overview on the rest of the center, besides the cinema, since we're here. You have the site plan in front of you. Essentially, paper store is going to open next week.
Yeah.
Moe's is completed, it's supposed to open. We're having a little problem getting gas, but they've been pretty responsive, so hopefully we'll have that all, everything should be figured out for the firing up the second building. So the entire first building with Starbucks is pretty much done. The building out front, which if you drive in now, you'll see it went up pretty quickly.
Yeah.
That will include the bank, and we have signed Anthony's Coal Fire Pizza, and so. they
Wait,
are,
where?
At the very
there?
front, yes, absolutely.
That place is
So that's sign of good news.
white tablecloths.
Have you been in there?
Oh, well, we also have this tablecloth steak and fish place, which is upstairs. That is under construction. And candidly, it's pretty exciting because kind of like I think when I was young, I never got to play with real Tonka toys because I couldn't afford the metal ones, so I got the little Walmart plastic things. But now I've got real ones. It's a really fun thing to like walk through the site as it's getting built. So if you want to come out either this weekend or next weekend, I'm happy to give a tour both to the community or any of the neighbors. As we do the neighbors quite often, they come down and we walk them through. But at the planning board, we'd actually like to walk through these buildings as they're really in all different phases of deployment. So it's kind of a neat thing to see. And as addition, most of the earthwork for Phase 2 is now nearly completed. The bridge crossing to Building M has actually been completed as of today, and the paving will hopefully get in before the frost, if not in the spring. But basically where we are today is Great Road Kitchen, which is the Marcus Palmer concept, will be completed within the next 3 weeks.
It's in D, right?
That's indeed on the second level. Pet Source is now stocked. I think the other store up there, Great Cliff, is open. The other small building E is maybe a month out, so it may not open because of the Christmas blackout periods. Now, on the lower level, Paper Store, Moe's, and all the stores in F are either under construction or ready to open. So we're really leased out on Phase 1. We're now moving to the second level on Building C. If you've been out there lately, the steel for Building C is up, and it's being topped with steel at this point. We're hoping to have it enclosed before the end of December.
Yep.
And then that would finish level 2, and I think that will open in, unfortunately, March. We are a few months behind, unfortunately, both because of issues well beyond our control with some of our anchor tenants, but also just because it's taken a little time to get the right mix of tenants. And then finally, all the earthwork has been backfilled on Building C, so you can really feel the center at this point. And the plazas are in. You should have all the fire pits powered up within the next 3 weeks. And all the street lighting and pedestrian lighting is in there. Most of the landscaping is now been put in level 1 and level 2. So we will then be sequestering off the third level in Building C with where you see the construction trailers. And I'm assuming everyone's been up there to at least take a peek. So we'll fence that off, and basically we're just sort of marching up the hill. It's pretty exciting.
When are you gonna fill B?
We actually we're just finalizing lease negotiations. We should be able to announce tenants in Building B by the end of this year. We deal with the anchor tenants, the leasing takes a little longer because the leases are about this fat with most of the national tenants. But we expect to start construction on that building, restart it, the shell's done, the fit-out probably start. Unfortunately, we're in this, end of November. I don't think we'll get them mobilized before February, just because of the holidays.
Sam, are you still looking at a health club or?
We're looking at a lot of tenants. We have some interest from health clubs. For us, the difficulty with health club is we actually prefer the smaller ones, because the larger ones tend to overtax the parking.
Oh, right.
So we tend to try to look for smaller ones. I know we've been approached by companies like Tidal Boxing and Women's Health Clubs, some yoga studios, some
Oh,
cycle
boy,
studios.
that would be great.
So we're trying to mix that. It's all really the phase, what I
Yeah.
call the level 3 tenanting.
Yeah.
So that's, what has been our biggest focus. The biggest focus has been the restaurants, the theater, the Anchor, and the Marriott. And I know the Marriott, you might have seen, gone up pretty quickly.
Yeah.
They're now moving inside to start fitting it up. And I know Tim's got something for the board.
Wicked fast.
Yeah, it's fast.
Just from a few meetings ago, the ceremonial groundbreaking shovel
Has arrived.
town, and we had it engraved. This was for the Hotel Courtyard Marriott groundbreaking, The Point, Littleton, Mass, June 11, 2015.
Oh, that's wonderful.
So, that's pretty cool. Mr. Chairman, you can hang it in town hall wherever you like.
Yeah, we'll pass this around here.
Engraved as requested by the board.
Thank you.
And also, we've
Very
also
nice.
pretty much completed most of
Yeah.
the stonework on
Great.
the front entrance, and our front sign should be going up hopefully
Give
in
this
the
to
next
Myron.
30 days, right?
We should put it in the office.
We should put it in Myron's office.
I think.
Myron should put it in the
Or
office.
in the, right over when you walk in. Where,
Yeah.
Yeah, the apps come in.
Right there.
Thank you very much, Sam
Very good.
and Tim.
Sam, when are we gonna go have a drink in your,
That's a good, thank you for reminding me of that. We had actually planned on doing we are going to be hooking up with the Indian Hill Music School to do some performances on site starting next year. The idea being that we're creating some stages for them in some of the plaza areas that we're building. Our plan had been to get everything completed and open by October 15th, when it was warm enough to have basically a little festival inside the courtyard. Unfortunately, we've slipped into the months where it's probably too cold to do that. So we will either have an open house, for any community, anyone, once Marcus Palmer's Great Road Kitchen is open, to sort of celebrate the opening of level 2. And, we'll probably have also, one thing I forgot to mention is your police and fire departments have been great, your DPW's been great, and most of the town people we've worked with, including Littleton Electric and Water, they've all been really great to work with. So we'll probably have a day to celebrate the employees of the town. In terms of, maybe it's a free burrito, maybe it's a free coffee. It's got to be below, I think, $5 whether it's conflict of interest. But I did want to go and just sort of commend the fire department and the police department. They've always been very responsive. DPW's been very responsive, and Littleton Electric has been phenomenal to work with.
So how does one go for a tour?
I think if you have a date that works for everyone, or if you want to do it individually, you're welcome to just come up. Marin has Tim's connection, and I'll make it, I can be up here on weekends as well. That's easier for people.
Do we want, as a board, to go for a tour this Saturday or next Saturday?
No, I can't do it.
You can't do it. Mark?
right?
I could certainly do it. You could do it?
I could do a Sunday, but not a Saturday.
Not a Saturday?
Why don't
Peter?
you email available times for each, and we can,
Okay.
since our offices are up there now, it's very easy to just
All right.
give individual tours. With a day's notice, we can have someone there to, if it's not me, it'll be Tim.
And if any of the other boards in town want to go, or any individuals from other boards?
Absolutely. If anyone from the neighborhood would like to come and see a tour, please do. We get a lot of kids, actually, believe it or not, wanting tours.
Really?
So I know we had the drone flight that we did for some of our marketing, and a bunch of the kids at Starbucks, got to fly the drone over the highway and back. But it's pretty neat. The project's now coming together. Before it was a lot of digging of holes and sewer pipes. But as the steel goes up, it gets pretty exciting.
It's an expensive little toy you got there.
What's that?
It's an expensive little toy you got there.
Yeah?
The
No,
drone?
it's not ours. It's
What's
our
it?
consultants. But,
The drone?
When's the sidewalk extension on Russell Street going to get done? Do you
Good
know?
question. I'm not sure what the answer to that is. I know we've agreed to fund it whenever the town is ready to pull permits.
You had nothing
Yeah,
to
no
do with that
time on it?
water main going up on 119 and stopping at White Street, right? That had nothing to do with this
No,
project?
probably not that one. The one going on 119 over the bridge
Yeah, well,
is
it's
part of our
stopped.
Phase 2 improvements. Not our improvements, but I think we've agreed to fund it through a tax betterment. We've,
Are they done with
half
that?
of it.
They're gonna repave what they've already paved, right?
They'll do a temporary patch for the winter.
But they'll fix what's there now?
Yeah.
Good. I think I lost a filling. I knew that didn't have anything to do with you, because it would have been nice and smooth.
Hear that? Jimmy thinks you were driving too fast.
That's possible. Okay, off we go.
Very
Next.
good.
All right.
Thank you very much for your time.
Boy, Sam, thank you very much, very much. When will we see you again?
We're gonna go on the tour.
I'm always around,
Oh,
so.
after the tour.
That's where he lives now.
It's the only time I get to sneak a steak at Crossroads without my wife knowing. so. That
All
was
right.
recorded, was it?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's a friend of mine who works for
Great, thank you.
Source.
All right. Let's see. 8:20. Oh, 8:15, GIA present information on pervious pavement.
Wait, where's the applicant's expert?
Oh, this is great.
Where's the expert that was ready for?
It's funny, she was an expert.
Oh, yeah.
That was easy.
See, who asked for this?
Good evening.
Thanks.
My name is Eric Atkins from Green International. Daniel Spicer is here with me as well. We were asked by the board to make a presentation on
Thank you.
pervious pavers. And so we had put together a little presentation for you folks to help
Thank you.
maybe educate the board as to some of the benefits and some of the drawbacks of pervious pavers. And with that, I'll turn it over to Danielle Spicer, and she can make the presentation.
All right, good evening.
Thank you, Dan.
I want to first just kind of clarify that I'm not here as a sales pitch for permeable pavement. I basically, we were asked to kind of come in and give our expertise as we've used these systems and seen how these systems have been designed, constructed, and maintained, and some of the benefits and some of the problems with them. Please feel free, as I'm going through this, to ask any questions. As I'm going through it, you don't need to wait to the end. And if I'm getting it all too technical, just let me know. But so with that, basically, I want to talk about, first about what is permeable, also porous pavement. You'll hear me kind of use those interchangeably. What type of permeable pavement systems are there? There are actually more than one. Where is it appropriate to use it? Where is it not appropriate to use it? What are some of the regulatory requirements when using these? I'll actually give you an example of where we actually, Green designed a system that's been installed for several years. What are some of the maintenance requirements when using these systems? And then sum it up with just the summary of some of the benefits and some of the cons for using the systems, and open it up to questions. So with that, this is kind of a typical example of what a permeable pavement system is. And before I get into this, basically any new project that is coming for a permit approval, whether it be new development or redevelopment, if they're increasing impervious area, they need to deal with stormwater and they need to mitigate it. And so permeable pavement really came about with the fact that when you are developing an area, a lot of times when you need to mitigate stormwater, a lot of land could be used up for these stormwater BMPs, like detention bases and everything. So when you have an area, and that's valuable land area, and so when you have an area where you necessarily don't want to use it for that, this came about because it provides a hardscape access where you can have both vehicular and pedestrian uses over it, while also being designed as a stormwater best management practice that will actually treat stormwater runoff. So this section that I'm showing right here is actually from the UNH Stormwater Center, and if you're not familiar with who they are, they're a federally granted research program where they have actually installed multiple stormwater best management practices up there, and they've been analyzing them for about 10 years now. And it's a great resource for regulators, designers, planners to be able to use their information, because they have quantitative information about how these systems work, how they don't work, how they're being maintained, how they're in the type of weather. They're also in New Hampshire, so they go through that cold climate weather that we have down here as well. So with this is kind of a typical section for porous asphalt, where you have your top 4 inches of asphalt, you have a choker course, then you have this sand filter, which works for water quality, treating it, and then you have this drainage area beneath it. This one is actually showing an under drain, but you may or may not need that, and I'll get into that in just a little bit. The way porous asphalt basically works is it's an aggregate and asphalt mix that basically takes the fine sands out of the mix. So it creates these void systems, so that basically the water can just drain vertically through the system and infiltrate back into the ground. And that's really the intent of these systems. There's actually 4 different types of permeable pavement systems. The most common is the top one, and I think I actually, yes, all right, doesn't work on the TV. Okay, well, the top one is basically permeable asphalt. This, and I'm looking at the diagram over on the right. The second one is permeable concrete. The third one is permeable pavers, and we're actually see there is the pavers themselves are not permeable, but it's the void space between them that allow the water to infiltrate in them. They're also, if you see the acronym PCIP, that stands for permeable concrete interlocking pavers, they're the same thing. And the fourth one is basically this open graded grid system that can be either made out of, the grid can be made out of either plastic or concrete, and you can either fill it with gravel or turf systems. So these are kind of the standard ones of the permeable pavement systems, and what can be used for design. Whoops, sorry, jumped ahead. One of the most important things when looking at where these systems can be used is looking at your site conditions. These are not systems that can be used everywhere. They absolutely have places where they're inappropriate to be used. This is just some example of some pictures. So in the top left is an example of a roadway that's half permeable asphalt and half regular asphalt. You can kind of see the portion of the road that's closer to you is the permeable portion. The farther away is the regular asphalt, and so you can see where you don't see the wet glare of the water and the permeable part. The middle picture is actually a project we did. It's where we had some permeable pavers designed at Peabody Square. And then the bottom right is just an example of a porous concrete sidewalk. And I guess the intent of this is these can be used for multiple uses. It's not just for parking lots and driveways. You can use them for sidewalks. You can use them for courtyards. But it is site-specific, and there are certain parameters that need to be looked at. One of the couple things that, some of the main things that need to be looked at are, what are your soils beneath here? Where is groundwater? And what are your site constraints? This is an example of a project we're working on in Wilmington where we had some site constraints where the town wanted to have this perimeter sidewalk going around the entire area. And you can see that dark gray is this sidewalk, and then it also goes all the way up to the north. Where that portion goes up to the north, we had some resource areas on the side, and so we really couldn't install a traditional sidewalk there and have either it sheet flow into a swale and capture and collect it, or to do curb and gutter because of the grading and everything. So this was a way where we were able to look at giving the town a hardscape sidewalk, but also being able to meet the stormwater requirements because this is a new development system. So when we're looking at some of the site constraints and conditions and whether it's appropriate, some of the things that want to be looked at is there ledge on site? These things are meant to infiltrate water into the ground. If there's ledge there, that's not going to allow it to infiltrate into the ground. So it's definitely not advised where you may have ledge. What is the distance for the seasonal high groundwater? There should be at least a minimum of 2-foot separation between seasonal high groundwater and the bottom of these systems. Not the top, but the bottom of these systems. Is the system located in a Zone 1 interim wellhead protection area? Or I shouldn't say, is it located? Is there a Zone 1 interim wellhead protection area or Zone A surface water protection area zone? If there is, they should not be located within them. They should be outside of that. Is the slope, is the area sloped, or I can amend that and say if it's within that, it needs to be lined and not infiltrating. Is the area have a big grade change in topography? Typically, when we look at designing these things, we want about 5% or less grade for when designing them. And then, is this system going to be placed next to a building? It's not to say that it can't be placed next to a building, but if it's less than 10 feet from a building, there should be appropriate controls designed so that the building is waterproofed. Maybe the system is actually lined with an impermeable liner right next to the building. We want to make sure when they're being designed that the water that infiltrates does not get into a basement or anything like that and could cause flooding, those issues. So with that, when someone's looking at the different sites, there's actually multiple ways to design these permeable pavement systems. The first one is more of a full infiltration system shown on the top left, where you basically have no underdrain system, the water is going to infiltrate vertically straight through it, and that's it. That's system I would probably only be recommended to use with A-type soils where you have really well-draining soils. Typically, we use more of the second and third type of section when we're designing it, and mainly that is so it works as a partial infiltration system in the fact that it goes vertically through the system, but you have an underdrain system there. And the underdrain system there could be designed for a couple different reasons. One of them could be if you have poorly draining soils, it's basically going to allow some of the smaller rainstorms to infiltrate, but then any of the larger storms is going to collect it, move it out, and you're probably going to have some other stormwater treatment mechanism to deal with the larger storms. Or you could just be designing it, the third one is actually where you have it as kind of an overflow system, so you're allowing it to infiltrate even more, but it's got to fill up, and then it's giving it a redundancy system so that in a stormwater event that you just didn't anticipate, it's going to actually get in the system and get out, and it's not going to cause any harm within the pavement system. There is another alternative, which is the non-infiltration system. So basically, this would be for a site where you just can't infiltrate. If it's a brownfield site or something like that, that would be a case where you may want to use it for water quality, but you're not going to be able to infiltrate it, so you're going to line it completely with an impermeable liner. You're going to have an underdrain system, and you're going to still have to have some other stormwater mechanism to deal with the detention and peak rates. Yes.
So, is this in lieu, I mean, this is in lieu of something that's already there, or if you were just like, if you're thinking of like a virgin site, right? If you were in a virgin site and you were, some of these conditions existed, when you already have natural permeation, so what do you care whether it's?
Well, so when you have soils, if you have clay soils, the stuff's not going to infiltrate.
Well, no, what I'm saying is, if I go into a field.
Yep.
It's all glacial till. All right, it's just the way it is.
Yeah, yeah.
Now I'm going to put a permeable pavement surface over it.
Yeah.
So what? It's already glacial till anyways. I'm putting permeable pavement over it. I don't get the difference.
Well, what this is basically saying is if you have a site that you want to develop and you want to put a parking lot there, or you want to put some impervious area, you have to be able to show that you're treating your stormwater off of those impermeable surfaces. So this is a way, instead of capturing it in a catch basin and then collecting it and putting it through like a sediment forebay and a detention basin, which could be one treatment drain, and then having it go off-site. What you're doing is you're having that whole system be underneath the pavement and having it go through a sand filtered layer, and then this drainage coarse stone, and then to kind of continue down. And then if it doesn't infiltrate, if you have poor soils, you would maybe have an overdrain that could, go out to another mechanism as a redundancy.
So how would an engineer go about showing that treatment in this system would be equivalent to a traditional system?
So they would need to submit, so when they submit their stormwater management report, they're going to need to show how are they meeting the water quality standards, how are they meeting the peak rate, so the drainage layer, that bottom layer, is basically acting as your basin, so to speak. And it's the only credit that you can use is, it's basically the void space of that, and that's so you really can only use about 30% void space to take credit for the amount of volume that you actually have in these systems.
Okay.
So they need to show, and typically, they need to show how they're meeting the 210, 2500 year storm, whatever that is, that they're meeting their peak rates using this type of system based on their native soils below. Are they using an under drain? They'll have to put that in their design. They're going to have to show that in all the calculations. And then they'll have to show how they're meeting the recharge calculations, water quality.
Right.
I mean, this system can, if it's designed properly, you have the proper soils, if you have the proper separation of groundwater, it can meet all those. But there's several steps that need to be evaluated first to even determine if it's appropriate to use this.
And I think, Jerry, if I may, to go back to your glacial till question, that ties into what she had said, that sometimes those soils, such as glacial till or clay, those may not be appropriate to use this type of a system in that scenario unless you design the proper overflow systems to account for the fact that you're not going to get that infiltration.
Yeah.
But you still get the treatment through that media, but you're not going to get the infiltration you might get when you have sand.
Right.
And that actually, if I can go to my next slide, this shows how these systems can actually specifically work for water quality. And that might be a good example. Maybe you want to use it to treat the water quality, but you're not going to be able to use it to meet your peak rates and stuff because it's just not going to detain it enough or anything like that.
So what you're really showing us, in order to use a permeable surface for a parking lot, it's not just putting permeable pavers down. You have to
No.
really do your homework in the
Yes.
ground.
Correct. Yeah, I mean,
Right.
yes, and it's not just the top system. I mean, this system has multiple layers to it, and most systems that we design would always have this filter course, which is that red layer right there.
Yeah.
Because that's one of the benefits of this, is it being able to act as a filtering system, and that's what you need. You need that filtering of the...
What is the basic depth of this? I mean, you're drawing it, I mean, the
It
4
can-
inches, 8 inches, 2 feet, 17 feet.
Honestly, it varies
varies on the
significantly
groundwater.
based on your based on where your groundwater.
Base
What
groundwater.
are your soils beneath it? What is your traffic loading above it that you
Well,
really
there's gotta
want
be a-
this?
There's got to be a break point, as he's asking him, why would you use it, where would you use it? There's
Yes.
obviously,
If there's going to be a point where it's going to get too expensive. Like if
Right.
you have a site where it's not going to infiltrate into the ground, so your reservoir system's going to be huge. You maybe don't have the greatest separation of groundwater, so you're going to have to raise the system up. You're going to have to bring in a dump bunch of fill. It's not going to be practical to use this.
And a lot of those decisions are site-specific, and
Yes.
a developer may find that the real estate that he would lose to do an at-grade treatment system is too valuable for him to lose, and he'd be willing to invest the extra money into a system
Right.
like this, as long as he can show in his application that he's meeting the requirements of the bylaw, whatever it is, the subdivision or the Conservation Commission regulations, that's what he would have to show.
It's also different depending on what you're using it for. This for a walkway is a lot different than doing this for a parking lot.
You would
You're-
not, yeah.
I was just going to say, your thickness may be different because the amount of, the other thing you just need to be considerate of is when you're designing these systems also is if they're acting as a stormwater BMP, what is running onto it? A parking lot may have, other area that's going to run onto it, and that needs to be taken into account with your calculations. A lot of times sidewalks are a little bit raised up. They're acting kind of as their own system. That was actually the example I gave from Wilmington that we were using it. They have no runoff. It basically is just its own sidewalk, so you have a much shallower profile, and it's a little bit simpler, and it makes it more cost-effective to use that.
So the material that Marion handed out earlier, I think a couple months ago, and the stuff, so one of the big concerns was they have to be cleaned out periodically. They act a lot like septic systems. Eventually, systems fail.
Yes, I'll get to maintenance. I'm definitely going to talk about maintenance of these systems. I mean, this is just, if you think of it, it's a stormwater,
But it doesn't make sense.
it's a structural stormwater control, and it needs to be maintained just as any other of these systems need to be maintained. And if they're not maintained, they'll fail, and they won't work. But if they are maintained, they can be used they have the same longevity as a normal asphalt system.
20 years.
That's out there. So this is just to point out the water quality benefits that can be used. This is actually a slide that I took from UNH. that basically they have 3 systems up there with porous asphalt, pervious concrete, and permeable pavers. And they've been gathering their results. And what this just shows is all 3 of those systems treat at least a minimum of 80% of your total suspended solids, which is typically our major concern in Massachusetts. The other one that we sometimes look at is the total phosphorus, depending on where we're located. And, well, porous concrete wasn't analyzed. It's showing between 50 to 60% for phosphorus removal for the porous asphalt. And actually, the permeable pavers almost has 100%. The other thing this is showing is just the total petroleum hydrocarbons, which you get from your oils, drips. All 3 of these systems, treat about 100% of that. So, and that's, the reason for that is that sand filter. That's, if you don't have that, you're not going to get those results. But that sand filter acts as a great treatment for those type of systems. One of the other things that is very important when we're looking at these type of systems is what are the regulatory requirements. Anywhere that's within the jurisdiction of the Wetlands Protection Act, you're triggered to the Mass DEP stormwater standards. My understanding is the Littleton bylaw also, if you're coming for site plan approval, also triggers you to be compliant with the Mass stormwater standards and your subdivision regs. So bottom line is, with regard to the Mass stormwater standards, there are specific requirements where using these, and I've already talked briefly about some of them, but they should be located outside of Zone 1, which is your interim wellhead protection area. They should be located outside of Zone A, which is your surface water protection area. They need to have that 2 foot of separation to groundwater, and there's just other setbacks that they need to be looked at. And again, the slope considerations and all that type of stuff. So there are important regulatory requirements that need to be looked at. The other thing is they should not be used in areas with high traffic or high average daily trips. If you have a site that is gets like a big retail site with a lot of average daily trips, this would not be recommended to be using there. It's also not recommended to be using for land uses with higher potential pollutant loads. Again, it's that pollutant load things that you want to be careful of using them. I will say, it doesn't mean that it necessarily can't be used there. It is a recommendation, but if they were to be used in those areas, they need to be lined. They cannot be infiltrating systems. They need to be lined, and they would have to have some other supplemental DNP. So,
When the school I just finished in the Andover, the Bancroft School, had a fire road that was made out of asphalt permeable paving, and they used that in place of a stormwater retention pond. So the kids ended up with a playground instead of a stormwater retention pond, and the 2 feet of special material underneath the fire road became the retention pond.
It's fire road, so nobody's on it, right?
Exactly. Right. Yeah. So they still vacuum it. They still sand gets in it. They have to vacuum it. Yeah.
This is an example of actually a system that Green designed at Weld Hill, which is owned by Harvard next to the Arnold Arboretum, and it basically was a driveway with about 50 parking spaces designed as porous pavement. And this was actually installed in 2009 and has been working actually remarkably well. The cross-section for what was installed is shown right there. And basically, this site actually did have poorly drained soils. So to overcompensate for that, their drainage layer, they increased significantly to overcompensate for that. So it wasn't just meeting the normal standards, as well as they actually also put in some redundancy measures. At the bottom of the driveway, they actually put in some catch basins to be able to overflow to a subsurface chamber system. So they built in some redundancy measures in addition to what this had. Because it was important there because of the poorly draining soils. So it was an example of where they were able to do that, but they added some additional stuff for it. But that's been in there since 2009. It's been through some major storms, and they actually haven't had any issues with any ponding or any frost heaving or anything kind of coming up with that stuff.
So I mean, for a development like that, I mean, I don't know if this is the right question to ask, but I mean, typically if you're bonding a development, so you want to make sure, like our highway department doesn't get stuck with having to come in 15 years and mitigate some type of failure, I mean, especially when you get that much complexity to a subgrade system, like, is there any recommendations for how, if we were, let's say we wanted to implement something like that, would we have to consider mitigation or potential bonding for a site like that, that would be above and beyond what?
Are you talking about a private site, or are you talking about something that?
I'm talking about typically something that we, if we were to say, if that was, let's say we had a road, something that we were gonna take on as a municipality, would we want to be proactive about what type of funds would need to be put out for mitigation?
Well, there's
For
definitely,
maintenance
yeah.
and,
There's definitely, so this is a great segue into this. So there's definitely maintenance required, and there's specialized equipment that needs to be used. And there's different types of equipment. There's a regenerative air vacuum sweeper that can be used, which is a little bit more, less expensive, that's used more often, or you can go to the fully straight vacuum sweepers that are more costly, but they can actually be used to rejuvenate some of the porous pavement if it gets to the point where it's actually in failure mode. So there are mechanisms that can be done if the system does get clogged. Obviously, the intent would be to make sure it doesn't. One of the biggest things I would see that the town would want to make sure is, as if there are any projects coming forward that may be recommending these, is really making sure that they include in the design an operation maintenance plan with their system to show what are they speccing to use for their equipment, and how often are they going to be doing the sweeping and inspections and the frequency of it. Because if these systems, I love the comment that happens, unfortunately, sometimes too often is, you have an owner that decides to put this in, they're so excited about it, they put it in, they don't maintain it, and then 5 years later they go, okay, well now I need to maintain it, what do I do? Well, then by that point it could be in failure mode. So that's where we don't want to go. So it's really important to make sure, I think, as projects may come in front of the town to, for anything like this, is that they include an operation maintenance with that. Because if they're not going to maintain them, they're going to fail early, they're going to fail often.
So most of these are private. This is not something that you...
No, there's definitely towns that do them. I mean, I'm working on a project right now for the town of Wilmington, and they're doing it on their site.
I think, Mark,
Peabody,
you'd want to do it on a case-by-case basis, right? I mean, I think for a roadway, a town that the town would eventually want to accept or have to accept, I think you'd want to think very hard on that, because then that maintenance requirement does get, that burden gets placed onto the town.
And also with roadways, you just need to be careful, because you need to look at the whole length of the road, the whole length of the soils beneath it. It's also really not appropriate for high-speed roads. You really want it for your lower-speed roads. Your high-speed roads are it's gonna wear more, so you're gonna too quickly, and you're gonna be maintaining it much quicker than you would normal asphalt. So there are certain areas where you wouldn't want to use it for roadways.
But like a small development, say half a dozen houses or maybe 20 houses.
Yeah. I mean, residential use is a great way to use this, because you don't have a lot of high pollutant loads, you don't have a lot of other things that are going on. And it's a great, if the site is appropriate to use it, and you've got the appropriate soils and separation of groundwater, again, I mean, every site needs to kind of be looked at to determine if it's appropriate to use. Okay.
Great.
So just, I want to wrap up real quickly. Some of the things to consider that always people usually ask are, how do these systems work in the wintertime? This is actually the porous asphalt system that's located up at UNH. The top picture is the porous pavement system right after it was plowed. The bottom picture is the regular pavement right after it was plowed. And I don't want to say right after, it was probably about a couple hours afterwards, because the point of this is you can kind of clearly see in this picture, both of these are in sun, and one of the benefits of the porous asphalt is actually it does heat up, and as it heats up, if there's snow on it, like a little bit of snow, it will melt the snow, and the water will actually go straight through the system. And so you won't have that ponding on the surface, which actually works well for in the wintertime, because you're going to have, if there's no ponding, there's going to be no freezing of the water. You're going to have less use of salt that you're going to need, which would be very important if you're outside of that Zone A, but still in that aquifer protection district where you could use this. You really want to watch that salt use and additive, and you really want to minimize that. So that actually is a benefit there. With regard to the sun, again, this is actually a picture of a pervious concrete lot at UNH where it's literally 3 different areas. And the area on the left is actually, has full sun on it. The area in the middle is about 50% sun, and the area on the right is completely in the shade. And so you can clearly see how, even though it's been plowed, when you don't have that sun, it just doesn't get the removal as it would if it was in the sun. And so you would potentially need to use maybe a de-icing agent similar as you would with your normal asphalt in a situation like that.
I was at a seminar at UNH for
Yes.
permeable paving, and they took us out to an asphalt parking lot, and they showed us, they dumped a 5-gallon bucket of water on the pavement in the middle of winter, and it was like way below freezing. Went right through.
Yeah. I mean,
5 gallons just disappeared.
The great thing about it is because you have such a thick cross-section of this system, you don't get the freeze-thaw. I mean, the whole purpose of regular asphalt is to keep the water away from that drainage system underneath it. Like, you don't want the water to get under it, because then it will freeze and it will bump up and you can get the frost heaves and everything. This system, because you have such a thick cross-section, the water gets down, it never freezes up enough to actually get into the system. So you don't actually have the freeze-thaw effects with that. So this is just a quick summary of some of the benefits and some of the cons for this. Again, this can be used, some of the benefits is it can be used as a stormwater best management practice to be used to treat volume runoffs and peak discharge rates. It can be used to infiltrate and meet your recharge requirements as well as your water quality, as long as it's designed appropriately and site-specific. One of the other benefits is it can reduce your stormwater temperature and heat island effect. A lot of times in the summertime, if you have a regular asphalt system, you get the water that hits it and runs off along this pavement, and it will heat up pretty quickly. And if it ends up going to a catch basin and then directly out to wetlands, you can have some ecological issues with that. And whereas this, because it's going straight from the air into the ground, you're not getting that change in temperature, and you're keeping it localized and going straight in. It also, as I mentioned, has some pavement surface benefits, just in the fact that you don't have the ponding of the water on it, you don't have that wet glare, and the less salt maintenance and stuff during the winter, and it's a sustainable low-impact development technique. Some of the cons are that it does require specialized equipment for maintenance. It will fail early if it's not maintained. It is site-specific, it cannot be used everywhere. And the installation may cost more in the beginning. It is more specialized. You also need to make sure you have a contractor that knows how to install it. And
Wow,
that's it.
great, good job. Any questions?
No, that's great.
Yeah, the one point they made to me at the UNH conference was that you want to capture rainwater as soon as it falls, because it's at that point that it's cleanest. So if you can capture it and get it into the ground as soon as it falls,
Yes,
or
not
nearly
collecting
soon.
the total suspended solids, because the total suspended solids is what, where all the plumes are. That's, and basically, we have the rainwater that captures that, and then it brings it on down, and that's where we need to treat it.
Yeah, so when it hits system, it goes right in, and that's that.
Yes.
Great, good.
Certainly, if the board has any other questions, feel free to contact Danielle and myself, and we can get you the answers to any questions.
Oh, you did a wonderful job.
Yes.
Well, thank you both.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Eric.
Thank you.
Okay,
That's good.
Oh, yeah.
so that's the seminar for this week. That was a good one. Let's see, 8:20, which we're at 9 o'clock, running a little late. Turkey Tree Farm, 260 Foster Street, Grimes Lane, 36 lot, open space subdivision. Engineer has indicated that they have a significant amount of new information to present at this meeting, and they anticipate to continue the discussion at the December 10th meeting, given that they have not yet authorized the peer review, but I think that actually happened.
Yep, I did get the check for the peer review.
We have that.
Yep.
And
depending on how much new information comes in, Luke's going to take a look and see if he can do that within the original scope, or if it's enough additional information, he can revise the original estimate if needed.
well, that's fabulous.
To you right away.
Do we want to hear from the proposers?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. For the record, Joe Pesnola from Hancock Associates. We're continuing this discussion on the preliminary subdivision. We have made some significant changes, and also this letter is in response to comments made at the previous meetings, comments from staff, and just kind of an update of where we go, where we are. What we'd like to do tonight is just kind of give you the brief overview. I think the most important thing is for your peer reviewer to get on board and start reviewing it, so that and for you board members to be able to look at this new information that we've done. With regard to, so I'll try to keep this brief. With regard to the overall subdivision, we have reduced the subdivision from 36 lots to 31 lots. We listened to you and some of the concerns about the attractiveness of the open space on along Route 2. So that, coupled with some discussions that the applicant is having with the Board of Selectmen on the K piece. They have the K piece under agreement. The selectmen are considering right of first refusal on that. So there's been some discussions, and within those discussions, there was a great desire to try to preserve the western flank of the K piece. That provides a connection to the town forest. So within that discussion, our open space is now focused more to the west. So what we've done is we've actually removed a portion of the southern Grimes lots from the whole mix. That reduces us down to a 31 lot yield and this is the configuration of that 31 lot yield. So then we, within this, the board had concerns about nine of the lots in here as far as their buildability, their constructability, their whether or not they were truly lots. So what we've done is the lots that I've highlighted in green here, the 9 lots, are the ones that were what we call marginal. And what we've done is within the package that the board will receive is we've actually done soil testing and septic designs on each of those lots.
Each of the 31?
Each of the 9 marginal lots. So that you could see that in kind of the worst case scenario, where the lots are tightest to the wetlands and configuration wise, we're showing you that we can actually get house and a fully designed septic system on those. We've done testing on those lots, and that's all reported in that information for your peer reviewers to take a look at and verify. And our thinking is if the 9 most marginal lots are buildable, then we can prove out the yield. So then we looked at the OSRD, and again, K's up here. Desire of the selectmen to preserve the western flank, provide that corridor between the train station and the town forest. So we're thinking of, really concentrating our open space here. So we've got a large piece in the island here that's all dry. Very large piece of the active tree farm here that's dry, and some dry land up in here. I think we're up at 20. Jump out at me here. 21.4 acres of open space with 30 lots clustered here. We've also rearranged this to have complete corridor spines in 3 locations in a northwest direction, a north-south direction, and then spine going east-west for that critter crossing as the board wanted. So provide a real nice buffer to forest as far as the impacts there, keeping the development off Grimes, pushed up into the site. We think we've got a plan that that starts to address the concerns and the comments of the board, and we think it's definitely right for the peer reviewer to get into it and to get their thoughts back to the board, allow you time to digest what we've just given to you and move on from there. So we've you can grant whatever extensions to the 45 days that are needed for the board to move through this, and hopefully get to a point where the board's comfortable and we'll move on to the next steps, the special permits and definitive subdivisions. We also have included, we talked a little bit last time about the notion of country drainage, and we have given you a full list within the letter of the waivers that we would be seeking. But we also have given you details of that roadway system and how that would work, and cross-section, and also cross-section of how we would work with Grimes and the existing walls, and how we would make necessary improvements down there, but try to keep that rural character and keep those walls intact. I'm not sure if it's worth it to run through all of these points, or if the board just wants to get this out to peer review and digest the information at your leisure. We have kind of thrown a lot at you.
Could you, this is the first time we're seeing this, could you give us a Reader's Digest version on what we're looking at, what we'll be looking at?
Certainly. Basically, the first part is just talking about the changes to the yield plan and the OSRD, and the focus there, or the refocus there of the open space, and going along with the discussions with the K piece. We talk about the soil testing on the 9 lots and the more in-depth look at that. We have the issues of ownership and some of the legal issues that Attorney Gould can speak to. We have, and then we have the list of waivers that we would be looking for the country drainage. And then we run through some of the actual comments on how we're addressing stone walls, the concern about usable open space for active recreation, usability, the connectivity, so that we think that we've addressed that through the reconfiguration of that. Soil concerns, we got out there and did the additional soil testing. Screening up on Foster, we have added some indications of screening to those abutters. Up on the K piece that gives us our access to Foster. That's the Reader's Digest of that.
I did have a brief discussion with Amy Green, the Conservation Coordinator. She said they're closing in on the wetlands delineation. The one piece they can't do until the spring is check the vernal pools. I'm not familiar with where the vernal pools, the potential pools are located on the site, and it's not clear, it wasn't clear to me if that impacts the area of the site.
Right. The commission had, the commission has voted to issue the override on the wetlands line. So the wetlands line is now official, if you will. They brought up the question of vernal pool in the farmer's pond, a vernal pool up here at wetland C, and a vernal pool down here at wetland G. We've gone out there and done an investigation of those areas, and from our standpoint, the farmer's pond does not meet vernal pool criteria because it has water in it year-round. And the definition of a vernal pool is that it dries up, it goes seasonal, so that the critters leave it, go do their thing, come back to it in the spring. So we feel the farmer's pond is not a vernal pool. And this is our wetland scientist that's doing this investigation. Wetland C, this one up in here, that wetland doesn't have the ability to hold water, so it doesn't pond enough in the springtime to do that. And the same thing with this one. This one's got an outlet that runs down, connects between this wetland and this wetland. So we don't feel they have the initial or the baseline characteristics of vernal pools. The other test to that is not so much does it have the characteristics, but are there critters using it? And we can't look at that until springtime when they're actually in it. So we have deferred that to, we've asked the Conservation Commission to defer that until we get to the notice of intent stage, in which case we would do that additional study and report back to them, and then provide the protection that we need to. I mean, it is important to know from the standpoint of the yield plan and from that we need to consider bordering vegetated wetlands. We need to consider the vernal pools that are outside of the bordering vegetated wetland. But these three areas are inside bordering vegetated wetlands, so they have no impact on the division of the land under the yield. What they may have impact with is whether or not there are extended areas of protection. In some cases, depending on what critters are there, there could be 100 feet that they want to protect, and then that might just impact how we develop the OSRD in those areas. But again, we've looked at them. We don't feel that they meet the criteria, and we hope to prove that out as we move forward with this project.
When you were here last time, we talked about possibility of a field on the other side of Grimes Lane. Is that
still a possibility according to them?
That's still on the radar screen?
Possibility
of a field on the other side of Grimes Lane? On the Route 2 side of Grimes Lane?
Down here.
Mm-hmm.
We've taken that land out of the project.
Okay, and you've done what with that land? Or you've exchanged it for the corridor, the natural corridor on the left?
Yeah, now our open space is all concentrated over here.
And you did that through a discussion you had with the selectmen?
Well, there was some discussion here about the viability of this because of its proximity to Route 2. That coupled with the discussions with the selectmen and their desire to protect the western flank of the K piece and connect it, kind of do preservation along this corridor, that led to reconfiguration of that. The elimination or the taking this area out. So if we go heavy over here, then it's difficult to configure 36 lots in here. We can't do it the way our program would be. We didn't want to just bang out some lots down in here to keep this rural setting, so we just took this from the south side out. That led to the reduction from 35 to 31.
And what is the outcome of the stuff below Grimes near Route 2? What is that land to become? I mean, what's your long-term goal for that?
No long-term goals, right? No plans right now. There are also some peripheral discussions we had a meeting with Nordblom, who owns the piece over here that's undeveloped, with the town administrator and Marin about, long-term, maybe some kind of transit-oriented overlay district to do something around the train station. And maybe that parcel comes back into play with regard to that. It could be transfer of development rights, it could be whatever. We just understood that there was less desirability on that for either, for residential because of its, for single-family residential because of its proximity to Route 2.
And the tracks.
And the tracks. And then its usefulness as a field coupled with the caving. So it just, natural
That
progression.
Foster Street right on the left-hand side by your chest, so.
This is Foster.
Right there, and all that. The stuff that you're saying is you're gonna make that part of the corridor, and the selectmen want that there to be part of this. That's kind of hilly and daly right there anyways, isn't it, relatively steep? That's where most of the trees were planted?
This is all the street corners. It's got,
It's interesting, because from Foster Street back, you'll have a significant buffer before you get to the development. So much of that won't change visually. But you still own the piece on the other side of Grimes Lane.
See, that's something that some people don't seem to.
Is there a chance that could be pulled into the project so that could be donated to the town as a field?
Have the selectmen decided if we're gonna approve this yet, do you know? Just curious.
Could you show me where the odd-shaped lot formulas are on the conventional plan? I look at all the lots. I only see it in like 1 or 2.
While you're looking at, Sherry, can I just ask you a question on closing the loop? Note B on this, Note B, closing the loop on the Grimes Road.
Oh, yeah. That was
Grimes Lane.
one of the questions I was going to ask too.
Not resolved, are we getting close to resolving that issue?
So the title is very clearly owned by the Berkeys, but we transferred to this owner. And there's very clear case law and conveyancing standards that say that if an easement is on your property, you have an absolute right to relocate it, as long as you don't interfere with the easement rights of the people that are served by it. So, close to closing it, I think it's closed. Town council has opined that it's not a public way, and this applicant will have the ability to build it out and improve it as being presented. There'll be a letter.
Jim, while you're here, I have a couple of questions regarding the waivers they're requesting as far as granite curbing. It's been my experience living on Grist Mill Road that there's no granite curbing when it got repaved, and makes sense to do the California curb in most locations. However, I've always thought that it makes sense to put granite curbing in at the intersections or at the corners of the roads, only because that's where the trucks seem to do most of the pushing, and we lose the California curb because the loaders come in and push those out as well. Just wanted to get your opinion on that.
I'd have to think about it. Depends on what type of curbing you're gonna put in there. If you put slope granite curbing, that tends to get knocked up too. The vertical granite curbing's more rigid.
Yeah.
As long as it's done well, it can work, but if they don't make good transitions, it doesn't work very well.
Right.
Done well means cemented into place.
Right, so in a situation, in my mind, I'm imagining just the granite curbing on the corners to prevent the damages caused by snow plowing in the wintertime. And then you do maybe one sloped granite to tie it back into the California curb, so to speak. Just
Have you answered that yet?
he did. He said that the slope doesn't seem to hold up any better than California.
I don't know what the California is.
It's the asphalt curb, or Cape Cod, yeah, whatever you want to call it.
And Sherry's statement about the easements, that if you can move the easement as long as you don't detriment the people that were named in the easement? Really?
Absolutely. 2004 case, and it really revolutionized the law on easements. Very well-known standard right now. The owner of the Easements are funny. They say the owner of the easement is the owner of the easement right to pass, and the subservient estate is the land that owns the easement, which is just a strange backwards statement. But the land that the easement is on, that owner can relocate an easement provided they don't detriment the people that are using the easement.
Without their permission. They can move
Yes.
that, they can move
Yes.
that right of way per se?
Yes, in fact, the case reads, it's interesting because the case reads, prior to this case, a recalcitrant easement holder who simply refuses consent to a relocation could veto a development. And that's the new case, changed all that. So that now the person whose land the easement is on, and specifically it refers to easements that are historic easements rather than easements that are conveyed by deed. So like this one, this is an historic easement because these people are using this right-of-way over the Durkee land because they've been using it forever. There's no real deed references to it.
Which one are you talking about? Are you talking about Grimes, or are you talking about the small little one between the two houses?
Grimes, I think they're talking
Grimes,
about
yeah.
Grimes. That's what they said, the one that needs to close
Yeah.
loop. which
Because
is
the reason I'm asking that is that in the conversation about the land that were discussed earlier, near Route 2 and the railroad tracks and that, if that is a right-of-way, and that's what you're telling me it is now, so it is not a road, so that property on the right there does not have frontage, correct? Because that's now a right-of-way, it's not a road.
It's
It's
a
not the
private-
standards, and it can be moved.
It's a private way, Peter, and there's also case law that says a private way can be used for frontage provided it's suitable with grade and access. And this board has allowed all the lots on Grimes to be developed, deeming them suitable with grade and access.
You can get a more lane too, really.
But the developer here is proposing to improve that, widen it, and make it to your current subdivision standards with some waivers, I think, that they're going to request so that they can keep the stone walls and the...
Okay, I'm good, thank you.
Okay, to answer your question, Mr. Montner, the little access road, the 50-foot access road, that's an absolute deeded ownership in the K estate. That no others have deeded rights to that in any way. And in fact, the K piece reserved easements to both of the abutter properties to grade and develop it for a future road. So they can actually enter on the land and slope it or whatever needs to be done.
Even though that nobody's paid taxes on it in 40 years?
In the tax assessor's maps. No.
Can we get it back?
Pardon me?
Can we get any of that back taxes back?
Yeah, with all the donations of the open space here.
Donations.
Well, I mean,
Donations. Written donations.
This open space that's being designated to the north side, northwest side, you mentioned in your notes that it's dry, it's high, and it's accessible for a future bike path. I thought that whole area was all wetland.
Nope.
Where is the dry area?
The blue line is wet.
Yeah.
So, wet here, here, and here. This is all dry.
So how would a bike path connect to the K property if the town were to buy it?
Down through here.
you just have to make a simple crossing at some point. There's only one
We
location.
could come onto the roadway and off the roadway.
Okay.
Bike path.
There's a gate there by the two retention ponds in this access road. Looks like an emergency access provide gate.
Yeah,
There's a-
on the OSRD, there's no houses on it.
Right.
So we didn't know if that would be right for maybe a gated emergency access.
I was just
to
gonna-
Just to keep the traffic flow to ground. So we're providing the secondary means of access, but we're also, kind of keeping this area all pristine.
Perfect location for porous pavement.
Yes, that's a perfect location for porous pavement. You guys sat through that, right?
Porous pavement.
You show the gate right in the middle of the road, right about where the blue line is.
Yeah, it would be a tough turnaround if you
How
put
do
the
you-
gate there,
What do you do with somebody who's driven down that road and finds a gate?
That's probably not a good place.
Probably at the beginning of.
Probably here.
Or both ends, yeah.
There's four-wheelers go around it.
All right, and stone walls. I noticed you have like a little token stone wall at the radiuses.
Yeah.
I might want to see those a little longer, so they're more significant.
Okay.
Yeah.
Why do you only want this
Inside.
as emergency access road?
No, we were merely saying that if we were trying to keep this
Off the
whole
road.
area pristine,
Off the road.
then maybe that didn't need to be used by everybody. And where there's no houses on it, it meets the need for, emergency access or secondary access to the subdivision. But you don't have people going down it all the time. It's just an idea. It's
Like
not
it.
not
No,
anything that...
I like that idea, and, it's a good, it would be a nice walkway that people could use, or bikeway.
I don't like that idea at all. You're forcing these people who live in this development to go out closest to the train, Why would you force them to do that?
If you don't like it, that's your opinion. I think it's a great idea.
Okay, that's your opinion.
So he says to the guy who was dancing with.
Development of this size should have two accesses from the road.
They do.
It has to.
Right,
No.
if you recall the Gray Farm open space subdivision, you have the main Gray Farm Inn and the Loop
Yeah.
Road, and you have an emergency access
Yeah.
that goes through the farmland that was preserved. This is not a dissimilar layout to that, but,
Right.
each site you have to look at it unique.
In the light that the only access comes out at a railroad grade crossing, where there could be, some incident, that's a very
You need an
likely
access then.
likely spot for an incident. That access road is absolutely necessary in my,
And we're prepared
in
to
my
build it
mind.
to whatever standard the
Yeah.
board desires.
Yeah.
I think I'd like to have highway and the fire department weigh in on
Yeah.
how they'd like that road go.
Great.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Montneri had a question with regard to the shape factors. We did the shape factors on the yield plan on the two reduced frontage lots. All the rest of them are fairly uniform, but we can certainly add all the shape factors to all the lots, just to clarify that they all meet or exceed that requirement. Happy to do that.
Okay.
That work for you, Mark?
Yeah, it's
Oh,
supposed to have that, so no problem.
Good. Any other comments from the board?
Are there going to be any traffic directional signs? Lot 30 that's shown in the lower corner. You have two different roads going around the lower lot. On that plan, it's not a lot any longer, but it's just off front. Are we going to make these two-way roads, one-way roads? I mean, it just looks like it could be a...
This down here,
Yeah.
this is envisioned to feel more like a driveway.
Okay, so that'll be a
Just to
driveway,
keep-
not a
Keep
road.
the farm feel there, and this would be the primary.
So there'll be some type of demarcation to give them more of a driveway feel as opposed, because in our paper drawings, it looks like another road.
Now, it's hard to tell, but we have sidewalks traversing the whole project, do we?
Yes.
They're requesting a waiver to not make them concrete.
You want to make them bituminous?
I mean, our thought is to have a country drainage, country field, rural setting. And we think that's more in keeping as far as that's concerned. But-
Jimmy, what are your thoughts on that concession?
I think a lot of these details, you're going to get some of the answers in the peer review, and Jim's not seen this yet.
Yeah.
So I think we've heard enough of this. Let's, why don't we go send it off to peer review so we can look at it again after peer review?
Is that,
motion?
that the wish of the
That's a
committee?
motion?
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second.
All those in favor?
Wait.
Any
To send
objections, none?
it off to peer review and to continue the hearing.
Well, it's a meeting, not a hearing, so we don't have to be very formal about it, but they've already signed the extension to a week past the December 10th meeting.
So we're all good?
So we make a motion to adjourn.
I second that.
All right, so we have a motion and a second to continue the
Meeting.
meeting.
Those in favor?
Any discussion? Wait, any discussion from the audience?
I just want to know if we're giving Green the marching orders, or we just giving them the set of plans and saying, take a look at it? Is there anything we specifically want them to look at, or just look at everything?
Fine tooth comb it.
Well, they gave us a proposal, Mark, that outlines what they were gonna do.
Yes, they can make comment on the outline.
Yeah. You good with that?
Very good with that.
Jimmy?
Without seeing this, I mean, I hear country drainage, and we've done that in the past. It is a concern, without having seen that I'm spending a lot of money to fix all the country drainage problems that we built in the past. I know if we build it into the structure, and into the subdivision, it might be easier, but we're sending water onto people's property, and if they change their property, then it changes the drainage patterns, and that's a concern.
Oh, that's a
So
good
Green will make
point.
note of that?
I'm sure they will.
Good,
Very good.
good point. Any comment from the audience? Okay, hearing none. All in favor?
All right.
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it. We'll see you on December 10th.
Thank you very much.
Great. Thank you.
Make a motion to close the meeting? Close the whole, we all done?
I thought that was the vote. All right, second that.
I would like to.
Meeting schedule, so we've got
All those
December
in
10th and
favor?
January
Aye.
14th. Are we okay with that, those two dates?
Yep.
All right, we have a motion and a second to close the hearing, or a meeting.
Second.
Motion,
All in
second.
favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you all. I'm saying hearing because I'm...